Hello, and welcome to the Don Valley. This is the heart of Toronto, a place filled with lush green space. But now, it's come under attack by human activities. Alright, Watershed. A watershed is a place where all water converges at one point. This, in the Don Valley watershed, would be the Don River. Now, many different tributaries, such as creeks, like Wilkett Creek, flow into this one primary river. All of the water in the watershed comes from rainwater. The runoff feeds all the plant life and animal life in the area. Eventually, this primary river flows into a larger source of water, which in this case would be Lake Ontario. Alright, runoff. Runoff is water that flows from hills into streams or tributaries or even rivers in a watershed. As you can see below me, the path was created by runoff. Runoff can be beneficial if it carries nutrients and restores the environment around it, but it can also be harmful if it carries fertilizers, any types of harmful compounds, chemicals, or even endocrine disruptors into its environment. Alright, let's talk invasive species. An invasive species is any type of organism that is brought over from somewhere else and brought over from another environment from somewhere else and wreaks havoc in its new environment. An example can be one of these, dog strangling vine. The entire field I'm sitting in is full of it. Other examples here in the Don would be the gypsy moth, the European fire ant, and also the garlic mustard. These species need to be stopped or else they'll outcompete the entire environment and the biodiversity here would lose a lot. Now then, onto turbidity. As you can see, it just rained. The Don River is a lot faster. It's flowing more powerfully and it's a lot higher than it was before. Maybe before it rained it was half a meter more shallow. So, turbidity is the measure of cloudiness in the water. The more cloudy the water here is, the more turbid it is. Now, more turbid water can cause lower dissolved oxygen levels because plant life, aquatic plant life specifically, can no longer perform photosynthesis. This doesn't aerate the water as much. It also causes low visibility, which can cause harm for organisms living in the water. Alright, let's talk water quality. I've just tested the Don River for its water quality. Unfortunately, it's very acidic, 6.8. It's also very high in carbonate, 180 ppm. And for both nitrates and nitrites, very low, nearing zero. The acidity could be caused by excess nitrous oxides and sulfur oxides. As they go into the atmosphere, they form into sulfuric acid and nitric acid. These then rain down in rain and cause rivers and environments to be more acidic. This is negative for a lot of the species that are very sensitive to pH, as the normal river pH ranges from 7.5 to about 8. Next, carbonate. A higher carbonate level indicates a higher water hardness. That could be very toxic for species who are very sensitive to water hardness. And finally, nitrates and nitrites. Too much nitrates and nitrites could cause algal blooms, which aren't very good. But too little isn't very good either. The Don River nearly has no nitrates and nitrites. This low amount would mean that plant life in the river would be almost non-existent. This would also mean that the surrounding life near the Don River hasn't been doing a very good job either. This could indicate excess pollution or a disruption in the environment from human activities. Alright, now then, while I'm still here, I'd like to talk about eutrophication. Eutrophication is an algal bloom. Basically, it's when nutrients such as phosphates, nitrates, and nitrites leach into rivers or a water source from runoff. Algae then grows, turning the entire water either pink, red, or green. After this algae dies, the entire water source is ruined. The dissolved oxygen levels go extremely low because the algae, as it dies, gets digested by aerobic bacteria. In order to release the energy trapped in its sugars, the aerobic bacteria must oxidize its sugars, which uses up all the dissolved oxygen within the river or water source. After this, the remnants of the dead algae flow to the bottom of the river, the benthic zone. And in the benthic zone, they cover up all aquatic plants, which then causes them to not be able to do photosynthesis. This ruins an environment, creates a dead zone, which may need to be repaired over the length of months or even years. The albedo effect. What is it? So albedo is the overall reflectivity of a surface. It basically counts as how much light and how much solar radiation a surface reflects. If it reflects more, that's a higher level of albedo. Surfaces such as lakes, forests, and rivers, they reflect a lot of heat back into space. That's a good thing. Urbanized areas, on the other hand, such as highways, buildings, paved areas, they don't reflect much at all. They absorb more heat. Because of this, it's more important to have green space and lakes in an area. This greatly reduces the effects of global warming and climate change. So, how do the factors I've talked about so far relate to climate change? Every single one of the factors I've talked about so far relates to climate change in its own unique way. Take the albedo effect. If it's higher, it's a good thing. It reflects more heat back into space. But other effects, such as the SOx and NOx, nitrous oxides and sulfur oxides released by factories in this area, those aren't a good thing. They can cause acid rain and can deprive the environment of plants and important organisms. Urbanization in this area has also caused a very large problem. The more a place is urbanized, the more fossil fuels are used. The more fossil fuels are used, the more CO2 is released into the atmosphere. This creates a positive feedback loop. Along with that, another factor is pollution in this area. Before the year 2000, there are many plants, such as evergreen brickworks, who release toxic chemicals into the Don Valley area. Before that even, there was an incinerator, which incinerated roughly 50,000 tons of trash each year, which was dumped into this area. Because of this, humans have caused a great deal of damage to the Don Valley area in terms of pollution, along with urbanization. In my opinion, a community needs green space to function. It provides both cultural and economic benefits. Unfortunately, the Don Valley is not doing so great. The Don Valley Watershed scored a C in its last watershed report in 2018. Along with that, this area has come under attack. Habitat destruction, pollution, and most of all, urbanization in this area. Because of this, the Don Valley is very sick. Despite the efforts of many conservation groups, this place is still not doing well. Green space is exceptionally important to both our community and to help fight climate change. Because of this, I believe that the Don Valley and other green spaces in the Greater Toronto area are very important.